And get us started. Good afternoon and welcome to our second session of the Navigating Towards a Successful Financial Future. And we're really excited today to have Ryan McDonald from the USC Credit Union talk about credit cards, do's and don'ts, a very important topic for all of us. Throughout today's session, you're welcome to use the chat to make comments or ask questions specific to today's topic about credit cards. We'll have time for Q&A as well as share some financial wellness resources with all of you at the very end. Please make sure you're muted to minimize any background noise. And with that, we'll move forward and share the goal of our financial wellness subcommittee. There's a group of faculty and staff working to provide accessible financial wellness resources to all of you and to offer educational strategies to support and increase financial literacy. I'd like to thank our financial wellness subcommittee co-leads, Professor Jana Wong and Professor Peter Cardone with the Marshall School of Business for all their leadership, partnership, and expertise around this important topic. I would also like to thank the members of the Financial Wellness Subcommittee listed on this slide for all their insights, contributions, and their work to bring financial literacy and education to USC. On the next slide, just a quick reminder to feel free to move during today's session. You can stand, stretch, move in any manner that feels best for you. And with that, I'll turn to the next slide. And it is my pleasure to introduce our speaker for today, Ryan McDonald, Director of Business Development at USC Credit Union. Ryan has more than 18 years of financial services in the industry and focuses on our faculty and staff to provide financial empowerment and education to equip our Trojan family with the skills, knowledge, and confidence to achieve lifelong financial success. And before I turn over to Ryan, I see that Peter has joined our financial subcommittee co-lead. Peter, did you want to say anything before we jump into the presentation?
Yeah, I'll be real quick. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah, so I'm here on behalf of the Financial Wellness Subcommittee. Jana and I are the co-chairs of it, but we also have a great group of people from across campus, staff, faculty, people who are real experts who are really eager to bring good programming to everyone across campus. We're grateful to all of you for joining the session. We're grateful for Ryan for giving us some tips. And financial wellness is a big deal. And even if you can get one insight out of today that you can turn into a habit, it's a great thing that makes a remarkable difference for not only your financial wellness, but it leads to overall well-being. So we're grateful for Ryan for joining us today. Thanks, Julie.
Thanks, Peter, and absolutely great points. And with that, it is our pleasure to introduce Ryan.
Thank you very much, Julie. Thank you very much, Peter. Thank you for the kind words there. And very excited to be here with everybody today, providing you some great financial background and knowledge, specifically in regards to credit cards. We all utilize them on a daily basis, but we're going to jump into some great essentials, some pros and cons, and then some tips in regards to responsible credit card use, which can really assist you in regards to building your credit and strengthening that over time. So let's jump into it and learn lots of great stuff here. So basically, a credit card lets you borrow money to make purchases instead of using your debit card or cash. Really gives us a total alternative there and allows us to basically utilize money when we don't have it. So we can spend up to a set amount called our credit limit. And then from there, we're required to pay the funds back on a monthly basis. Typically, that's approximately about 25 days. And the benefit here is we're not charged interest on those purchases until that statement is produced, which is the true benefit of the credit card, allowing as well as giving you the access to funds right away. So when your statement is provided, you'll need to make a payment in full, or if you're unable, you can make a flexible minimum payment, which is provided. However, we don't want to get trapped in that minimum payment because it will be charged a high amount of interest, and this will truly not really reduce our debt. This is only going to extend and increase that debt, and this can truly be a vicious cycle which we want to avoid. So if we can't make a payment in full, we truly want to make a payment as much as we can, look at our budget, and get back on track. And then basically, if we can't get out of this cycle in regards to holding that debt on credit cards, and it's amazing, I speak with a lot of people which are constantly holding a large proportion and over a specifically long time period of debt on their credit cards, and that interest rate is extremely expensive. So we want to make sure we're going back to our budget, looking at how we can pay that off, and taking advantage of moving that debt off of credit cards, looking at such things as debt consolidation loans, which will provide much lower interest rate terms and truly get you back on track in regards to paying down this debt. Now, a credit card is a great way to build and establish credit by basically providing the credit grantor a payment transaction history over time, showing your responsible behavior. And it's recommended that basically you have about 2 to 3 credit cards at a time, in addition to other types of credit, such as a personal loan, auto loan, and home loan. So you have a mixture of different types of credit, and that you're showing that you're utilizing it responsible in regards to strengthening and building your credit over time. Just hit the slide. Oh, there it is. Perfect. So we have a bunch of advantages in regards to credit cards. Primarily, the biggest one right there is that peace of mind knowing funds are available at any time when we require them. It also provides us access to funds in an emergency, which is really great. You need to make a purchase, you didn't have that set up in your budget, a purchase needs to be made today, that credit card is going to allow you to give you that credit limit to do so. It's also providing you the opportunity to build a positive credit score through that appropriate repayment behavior and that payment track record, which is so important just basically in regards to a credit card. And then truly probably the biggest advantage that we're all aware of right off the bat is the savings through discounts or reward programs. We're all typically going to be making a number of purchases over the month for gas, groceries, just so many things that we need there. So utilizing a credit card in basically making those purchases, there is a great incentive basically for cash back, airline rewards, or even merchandise. But we do want to note that these are incentives basically to make us spend. These are not incentives to make us save. So we need to basically utilize this appropriately. And then the last advantage that credit cards provide is purchase protection, which can be a really great item there on a new purchase that you have. So there's numerous advantages to credit cards, just making sure that we're utilizing them responsibly. And if we're not, then there can be some disadvantages there, which we would definitely want to consider going over the cards. So big disadvantages to credit cards here. Spending is just too easy. It's too convenient. It doesn't even feel like money. You know, there's been days basically I can use my credit card probably between 5 and 10 times and not even realize I've even done so. So really need to kind of keep track, always coming back to our budget to make sure that we have that money in which we're going to be spending. There's also potential to damage our credit score if we're using that card inappropriately and not making our payments on time, which we're going to be providing a number of tips down the road here in the presentation. Interest charges, one of the big ones, if the bill is not being paid in full each month, you're being charged a very high rate of interest compared to normal consumer loan options out there. So we don't want to get in the position where we're kind of stuck in that minimum payment, not even covering the full amount of interest going forward. There's also fees for late payments and certain types of services, such as, say, a cash advance. So really want to take note of what the charges are on your credit cards, because you have other options and other banking services which you can utilize at much lower interest rates and much lower fees. And then wanting to note, some card issuers can basically charge an inactivity fee to consumers who don't use their cards regularly. And as well, they can potentially just close that account, which will be an impact to your credit score, basically dropping your score because you're removing that transaction period, which is basically the key to a credit card and building and extending your credit over time. Okay, so in regards to credit sources, we have a number available out in the marketplace where you can get a credit card. There's 4 different types of credit grantors out there. We have credit unions, we have the major commercial banks that we're all very familiar with, we have financial companies in the space as well, and we have retailers and those store cards. There's a huge variation in regards to the interest rates in which they charge. So I want to give you a breakdown in regards to typically what those ranges are. On a credit union side, because those organizations are non-for-profit, they typically tend to have some of the best interest rates available. They'll range typically from about 15 to 18%. Your banks and financial companies there are a little bit higher, typically ranging anywhere between 22 to 28%. And then the retailer and store cards, they're typically on a much higher side. They can be anywhere between 22 to upwards of 35%. So really want to take note is if you're holding a balance on these cards, what those interest rates can be. And specifically, the retailer and store cards are, a big incentive when you go into a store and looking to make a purchase. Typically, every time you do so, they're offering you that credit card, store card right off the bat. That approval process is typically easier because they're truly wanting you to make that purchase directly on the store card. But take note that typically can only be, just directly for that one store. So you may not be utilizing all that all the time and may forget that you have it, may forget that you have a balance on it, and it has the highest interest rate there. So you don't want to be keeping a balance on any store or retail cards. Now, next, which is so important to get into, is basically our credit card features and all the terminology that we get when reviewing our statement and what really everything means across the board. One of the key items that we want to take note directly is basically an annual fee. Is most cards can have a 0 fee. I've seen cards all the way up to $100 and even more. It really depends what the benefits and features of that card is, but really take note, is that card working for you depending on what that fee is? There's lots of great options out there and tons of different benefits across the board. So take note of that annual fee. I know myself, I've had a credit card that has a $100 annual fee, and I don't see the true value in that $100. So I want to move it down to a 0 annual fee card. The next most important item that we have here is our APR. That's our annual percentage rate, and that's the range of the interest rate and the terms and conditions on that credit card, which I noted typically is going to range anywhere between 15 and 35%. And that's a wide, range in regards to interest rate from those 4 different card sources there. And it's really the most important item that you're truly looking at, because if you're not making your payment in full, you're being charged interest, and you need to know where that's going to be between that 15 and 35%. Minimum payment, that's, it's a nice feature that credit cards provide us. We don't need to make that payment in full, but the minimum payment really is just providing us some flexibility. However, we're basically being charged a much higher interest rate on that. So if we can't make the payment in full, we're making the minimum payment, but truly making more than the minimum payment so we can get back on track and make that payment in full and get rid of that credit card debt. And if we can't do so, we want to make sure that we're looking at other sources and moving that over to a debt consolidation loan, or even say a home equity loan, to wrap that up at much lower interest rate charges for yourself. The grace period on the credit card is really kind of the true benefit of the credit card. You're able to make a purchase and you're not paying interest on that immediately until your statement is produced, which is typically about 25 days. And that's the real advantage. You're able to make a purchase today. You're not being charged interest on it. But if you're unable to make that payment in full and you're only making a minimum payment or something just above that, you then are being charged interest on the balance you already have, and any purchase going forward, losing that basically statement cycle interest-free period. So it's extremely important to basically be paying the balances in full. And if you can't, short-term solution is minimum payments, making sure you get back on track. But if not, really making sure you get that debt into something else where you're not paying that huge amount of interest rate. Late fees, we need to take into account if we're not making our payments on time. That can be recorded anywhere over 30, 60, and 90 days. Late fees will come into play. Also, your interest rate can increase over a certain period of time, anywhere between up to 6 months if you have a late fee going on there, and that will possibly increase your interest rate for a period of time. And then once you're back on track, they'll go back down to your regular amount of interest rate that you have. Rewards, as we noted, is the big feature of credit cards that we're all aware of, and is, you know, the incentive that we're all seeing, and truly picking a credit card in regards to what rewards features those are. Those are primarily cash back, airline rewards, merchandise. We're seeing cards really in the environment right now in the marketplace just on specifically on one reward category, but there's other cards that hold multiple reward categories. So really make use of what's going to work best for yourself. And as we noted, you know, you're going to be making the majority of these purchases, so you might as well get some type of benefit off of that. And then another great feature that credit cards have is balance transfers. So you're able basically with promotional offers, with sometimes getting a new card or offers with an existing card, you can do a balance transfer, taking the balance off an existing card that you have, which you may not be paying off in full, transfer that over to your other credit card. And there could be a promotional offer such as a 0 free interest period or extremely low interest option there. That will come along with a balance transfer fee, which is typically between 2 to 3%. And this can be a nice short-term solution in regards to debt if you're holding that on other credit cards. But you don't want to be in a situation where you're just doing balance transfer to balance transfer to balance transfer over a period of, you know, years, just moving that debt onto other credit cards, because you may not be paying that off and you're not really, you know, working within your own budget. So balance transfers are great kind of for short-term debt solutions. And if that's staying anything longer than typically I say, you know, any time period between 6 months and a year, then you should be looking at other options to lock that debt up at a much lower interest rate and providing you a full payment repayment plan there. So lots of great items to make comparisons of all the different features when shopping for credit cards. And actually the best way to do that is the Schumer Box, which we're going to jump into right now, which was a really great act passed by the government here in May 22 of 2009. The Credit Card Act really gave consumers a lot of power here. It basically provides standardized tables in large fonts to display the information so that fine print is gone, which is really great. It truly lays out the terms and conditions of the interest rate and all the additional features there, so you can make a straightforward comparison in regards to credit cards, as well as truly knowing what your terms and conditions are. You know, you're not getting lost in that fine print anymore, which I think is absolutely fantastic update that they made to the Credit Card Act when this coming out to protect all of us as consumers. So let's jump into it and actually look at an example here. Let's just change the slide. Perfect. So this is what's known as the Schumer Box. And this is basically the disclosure that every credit card company, all 4 credit card sources that we looked at, must abide by federal regulation here. So when you're looking at that disclosure, the first thing that pops out to me is everything is in nice organized boxes. You'll note the bold font and you'll note the large lettering specifically in regards to the interest rates and fees. This really pops and stands out so you truly know what the terms and conditions are. And this truly is a much better position where we were, you know, a number of years ago before this, whereas we all remember that fine print and, you know, you needed a magnifying glass to truly see all those details. Now we have everything laid out. So we can see directly in the Schumer Box, it starts off with the annual percentage rate. We exactly know if there's an introductory period. We know what our interest rate range is going to be based on our credit worthiness. We know what the APR is for balance transfers. I mentioned that as a feature earlier. We see the APR for cash advances. Sometimes that can be much different there. We see the APR on a penalty when that applies. As you'll note, basically the normal APR on this card is 14.4 to 18%. But if you're making a late payment, the penalty APR kicks in for a 6-month period here, which is going to increase your interest rate there. Also noting kind of how to avoid paying interest on purchases, noting basically you want to make your payment in full on that due date, providing you some credit card tips there. And then we go into the full fee structure, annual fees, the transaction fees, such as a transfer balance fee being 3% of the total allowable cash there, cash advances. There's an additional fee and percentage on that, foreign transaction fees when traveling, and then as well, late and penalty fees. So really want to take note of the Schumer box in regards to your own credit card. When you're shopping for a credit card, this is basically the comparison. You're going to print out the Schumer box of each credit card, put them side by side, and really truly make that comparison and which going to work best for yourself. So I love the Schumer box. Actually, back in the day when this first came out, and we didn't have all the forms out, we actually had to handwrite in large, bold font over the fine print of what the interest rates and fees were, because they wanted this done immediately, and the fine print was just no longer acceptable. So I think this is a fantastic change that we've made in the financial industry here. Let's just move to the next one. Where's that slide? Go. Perfect. Now I want to jump into a bunch of credit card tips here for everybody that's really going to assist you in regards to your financial wellness. So tip number one here, avoid using credit cards to finance that unaffordable lifestyle and overspending. As we noted, it's just so easy to do, utilizing your credit card for numerous expenses, not even knowing kind of what you purchased. Really making sure we go back to our budget. We have one at the beginning of the month. We know what we're going to spend. I truly love the USC Workday system for our direct deposit and paychecks. There is we can establish up to 3 bank accounts to set our pay. So I specifically use that, one for my fixed expenses, one for my monthly funds, specifically my credit card bill and statement there, and then one for savings. So that really keeps me on track, knowing where my funds are going. That first account money is in and out. That second account, that's the one I'm monitoring. That's the one that's going to pay my credit card bill. That's the one that I truly need to be budgeting on. And then that third account I utilize for savings. So really key is always, that credit card is just very easy to utilize. So we just kind of want to take a step back sometimes before we pull that out of our wallet. Maybe think of utilizing your debit card right away, so that will take the cash out of your account, or having cash on hand. So lots of options to note and assist you in your budgeting. Let's move over to tip number 2 here. So the biggest factor basically in credit cards, and the most important piece of information, is we're always making our payment on time, whether that's the full payment or the minimum payment. We're always striving to pay in full, but life is life. Our budget will kind of get out of whack sometimes. That minimum payment is there for flexibility, but it's truly there only for flexibility. We want to get back on track, paying that debt down and not paying huge amounts of interest. So if we're unable to pay in full, we want to make sure we're making that minimum payment and making more than that minimum payment, because in effect, the minimum payment they're offering is not a payment plan. It's not even covering the full amount of interest that you're being charged on that specific payment cycle. So it could take you years to pay off, and that cost will just rise and rise. So really want to avoid that, and specifically avoiding late payments directly. All payments, if they're 30, 60, and 90 days, are being recorded and sent to the credit bureau. And just one 30-day late payment on your credit card can drop your credit score by more than 100 points. And it can actually take you up to 2 years of perfect repayment to recover that. So this is so tremendously important, to just making sure that you have automatic payments set up. Life can be very busy, and something very easy is just paying your credit card bill, paying a loan, even sometimes paying your rent, on time. You just forget about it. A weekend pops up. You got other things going on. So really making sure that your payments are going on time, because anything that's recorded 60, 30, and 90 days, that's going to drop that score, and it's going to take you a long time to get that back. And your payment history equates to 35% of your credit score. So it's the largest factor in determining your credit score. So having that budget in place to make your payments on time is so extremely important. Just making your payments on time, that's 35% of creating a great credit score and a great credit history. So really key factor right there. Let's move on to number 3 here. Perfect. And number 3 is, watching and taking note of your utilization. You want to keep your credit utilization on your credit card to about 30%. So as an example, if you have a credit card limit of $1,000, when your statement is produced, you want that to show about a $300 balance there. And here's a great tip for everybody, and one I really make sure I let everybody know. When you want to make sure your statement is producing a balance, because if you're in the habit of paying your credit card off beforehand and your statement is produced, no balance is being produced on your credit card. That's really great for you managing your funds and paying that off before the balance comes out. But if no balance is being recorded on your statement, no balance is being sent to the credit bureau. And in effect, then basically they see it as you're not utilizing your credit card. You're not establishing any payment transaction history, because it's not the transactions that they're taking note of. It's the balance on a monthly basis that they're taking note of. So if you have a credit card and you're paying that balance off before your statement is produced, in effect, you're not building your credit and you're not strengthening your credit. It's great for budgeting, but the key is to make sure that your statement produces a balance and then you pay that off afterwards. That's showing that basically you utilize the credit card and that you paid it off. And that's the key focus that we want to have. And that credit transaction history, month over month, having a balance, paying it, have a balance, paying it. That is going to build and strengthen your credit over time. If you're just solely paying that off, it's in effect like not even having a credit card. It's not doing anything for you in regards to building and establishing credit. And the key factor of having a credit card is to assist you in these items. So keep that utilization low to 30% and make sure that 30% utilization is being displayed on your statement, and then pay it off and go from there. Okay, let's move over to tip number 4. Perfect. Tip number 4, understand your credit card terms. Really important. We're all going to be incentivized directly with those reward points, cash back, merchandise, airline rewards. But let's take note of that Schumer box. Let's see it. Let's review it. Now, I have a Schumer box here from a different financial institution, and you can see that difference in the rate range right off the bat when we look at the APR, that annual percentage rate. So that first example that I noted, which might be from a well-known credit union, possibly on campus, compared to this major commercial bank here, interest rate ranging from about 19.5 to 28% there. Basically noting all the items there. So really want to make that full comparison, know the specific terms and conditions of your agreement, make note of all those features that we ran through earlier in regards to your credit card. Really important, because most people, we just see, oh, I'm going to get 60,000 bonus airline points for this credit card. That sounds great. Sign me up, but I have no idea what the annual fee is. I have no idea what the interest rate is. So really pull out that disclosure, pull out that Schumer box, and go through and identify all those key items there. Let's move over to the next one here. And our last tip here is basically making sure that we're not opening too many accounts in a short period of time. Also, I'm going to add to that we're not closing too many accounts in a short period of time. Anytime in regards when we're shopping for any type of credit facility there, we want to do so within about a 2-week period. That's going to make sure so it only counts as one full credit pull in regards to all your shopping, and then you can pick the offer that makes best sense for yourself. You don't want to be in a position where you're applying for credit cards, say every month for say 6 months down the road, because as you continually get your credit score pulled, your credit score will come down. So what you want to do is basically do all your shopping and have all your credit pulls done within a 2-week period. And basically that will just count as one. You get all your offers, you make that basically review of your Schumer boxes across the board, pick the one that's going to work best for yourself. Making sure you don't have too many is really key, because having too many credit cards can first affect your ability to purchase and borrow money down the road. because basically the ability that you have to borrow off that card, even though you may not be utilizing it, we have to factor that into our loan decisions for anything else that you're looking for. So too many credit cards can actually lower the ability for you to borrow money down the road. Opening too many accounts in a short period of time can kind of put you in a category known as a credit seeker, just trying to gather as much possible credit as possible. So really just want to take note of that. And then as well, also, whenever you're considering closing a credit card, you really want to take note of that because you're wiping out that entire payment transaction history. So if you've had a credit card for 8 years, you definitely wouldn't want to close that because you would lose 8 years of credit history right off the bat. So I take note, is you want to have between 2 to 3 credit cards. If there's one that you're really not utilizing, but it has that long credit history, continue to make sure that you make some type of purchase over time. You want to have and show these cards as being active. You want to keep that credit history as long as possible. In the financial world, when we're underwriting, we love to see credit cards that have been open for 5, 10, 15 years, showing that full repayment track record there. That's truly going to help build and establish your credit over time and really assist you in regards to access to funds when you need them. Okay, so I want to move over and kind of provide you another great tip here in which everybody can truly monitor their credit, basically see that information about their credit card as well as other credit facilities that they have. So this is probably one of the most important pieces of information that I share with all of our staff and faculty across our campuses here is you have the ability to go to annualcreditreport.com. This was a website basically through the Credit Card Act that was mandated here, set up by the federal government, and gives you the ability to reach out to the 3 credit bureaus, which are Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion. You can get your free credit report directly from them with no cost here. It's really great. I suggest everybody kind of do this right off the bat, pull all 3 credit bureaus at once, do a self-audit on yourself, kind of review the information that we get to see you behind the scenes on the banking side when you apply for a loan. We're looking for late payments of 30, 60, and 90 days. You would see that reflected on your credit report. You would see, most importantly, the credit facility as your credit card's on that report. You'll see what the credit limit is. You'll see what the reporting balance is on that card. Here's where you can take note, oh, I've been being so responsible with myself. I've been paying my credit card off in full before my statement is produced. You would see that as a zero balance being shown on your credit report there, and you would take note of that. Oh, I got to make sure I make that statement produce a 30% utilization on that. So it kind of can really help you get on track there. And then after kind of you do a complete self-audit, see all the credit facilities that you have on your report, kind of correcting any errors that may be on there, because there are a lot of errors that can occur: name misspelling, date of births, transposing the date and the month there due to the different date fields that can occur. And anytime you apply for a credit card or any other type of loan, these are the items that we just need to do further checks on and even sometimes correct before we can proceed. So if you can take note of that on your credit report beforehand, get that corrected, it's going to make applying for a loan much smoother for you, because typically when you're applying for a credit card or a loan, you're needing, those funds very quickly. It's not typically pre-planned out in advance most of the times there. So utilize this website, pull it all at once. You can utilize the QR code here. You can just simply Google annualcreditreport.com. It will come up and it looks directly like the header on the slide here. And then from there, I like to get in the habit going forward of pulling one report every 4 months going forward during the year. This kind of puts me in the driver's seat of monitoring my credit, making sure that I'm not a victim of identity theft, because if, typically if that does happen, a credit card is usually one of the easiest items that the fraudsters can open up in your name there. So you can basically take note if your credit report was pulled, which you didn't provide authorization to do so. on your credit report, and then you would see any credit facility that you're not aware of directly on that credit report so that you can take action immediately. So lots of great items in regards to kind of monitoring your credit report at one, doing a self-audit, and then being in that kind of 4-month habit of monitoring your report in regards to identity theft and really putting you in a position of good financial health, because now kind of you're aware of some of the stuff that we look on the banking side in regards to approving you for loans down the road. So with that, that kind of brings us to the end of my presentation here. We got lots of time for questions, as we figured there would be lots. So let's open up that floor and we'll take it away, Julie.
Okay, Ryan, thank you so much. Oh my gosh, so many useful tips. I need to get my report and maybe open another credit card. Thank you so much for this informative talk. We have a lot of questions, as I'm sure you guessed. So I'm going to start. Okay, the first question is, can you explain when is a good time to use balance transfer from one card with high interest versus another card with 0 interest for 12 months?
Absolutely. Great question. So if you're carrying, you have your existing card, you've been carrying some debt for some time on that, first off, you want to look at when doing a balance transfer is typically this should be something that you should be able to pay off within a 1-year time period. If we're not doing so, then we should be looking to moving that debt into a debt consolidation loan. So balance transfer, really my suggestion is for anything under a 1-year period of time, really great option to do so. You can take the debt that you have on the existing credit card. You want to take note, and you're paying anywhere between a 2 to 3% balance transfer fee on the total amount of funds in moving that from the one credit card over to the new credit card. But the promotional incentive is you're typically not paying any interest. That can be anywhere between 6 months to up to a year. So you're moving those funds over to that new credit card, paying typically that balance transfer fee, which is going to be much lower than the total interest rate cost if you were to keep that on your existing card. But then making sure we have that new amount of debt on the new card, we want to make sure that we have a payment plan in place, that we're making our payments, we've set up auto payment, and that we have a plan over the year to pay that down. If we don't, once that kind of time period passes, then that interest rate is going to jump up, and now you're paying the full amount of interest rate, and you're kind of back in this vicious cycle of having debt back on a credit card. So we truly, if it's over a year, we want to get that into a debt consolidation loan where we're paying a much lower rate of interest, which typically starts at about 10.5, and then we can provide you a full repayment term, whether that's 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 years.
The tip. Okay, so when approaching making the final payments on a credit card, is it recommended to just close the card or to downgrade? This person's over credit card debt and doesn't want to be near it again and unsure if it will affect their credit score negatively.
Absolutely. Great question here. Thank you for asking that one. So first off, I would look to reduce the limit on that credit card. I wouldn't look to close it because probably that card has a very long credit history, and that's something that we don't want to remove, because in removing that, that's going to basically completely erase that credit history. So I would suggest, for your own financial health, just ask for the financial institution to lower that credit limit down there for you. And then just continue to make sure you put a couple purchases on, every few months. I have one credit card that I really don't utilize because it doesn't have a good points structure on that, but I've had it for basically 10 years, and I've kept that open, and I make sure, every 2 months, basically, I just put a tank of gas on it or just a small transaction at the store just to make sure that it's continuing to show a balance and that I'm paying it off. Really recommend, not closing that card, but just ask your financial institution to pull your credit limit down on there. Now, noting when you're pulling your credit limit down, you're lowering that utilization on the card as well, in what you want to do, because that's 30% of your credit limit. So just take note, if you're lowering the credit limit, then you just need to make sure that you're actively lowering your utilization and your payment balance on that card.
And I think you mentioned this, but we can repeat it again. What's considered a good interest rate for credit cards and what is too high?
Absolutely. So that credit card range, as I noted, is anywhere between 15 and all the way up to 35%. I would say most, some of the great interest rates out there for credit cards are typically between your credit unions and your commercial banks, as well as some of your finance companies. You don't want to be using a store card as your day-to-day transaction purchase card directly at a store, because that is going to have the highest amount of interest rate if you can't make your payments in full. So really take note, of the offers out there, specifically what is the annual fee, what's the reward, but what is that interest rate range? Those credit unions typically are between 15 and 18%. Your commercial banks and retailers are between 22 and 28%. Now take note, you're only paying that interest if you're not making your payment in full. So if you're making your payment in full and you have no issues there, then you can kind of really select, interest rate isn't a major item of consideration. However, I'll take that back, because there's a moment in time where we all will not make our full payment, and we'll have some type of interest charge that we're being placed on those funds on that credit card. And I can tell you, anywhere between 22 to 28% compared to something much lower than that is a huge amount of waste of your funds in regards to, interest charges to the other options that you have out there in the market. So really take note of it. We all think there's going to be no problem. We're going to pay that credit card in full. But sooner or later, life is life. Something's going to come up. I was just actually in this position 2 weeks ago, took my car into the shop. I was expecting just a $500 bill. Well, needed new brakes. Didn't have that money set aside. That went directly on the credit card.
Same here. Do banks determine what cards we qualify for based on our credit score, or is it something that we choose ourselves?
Fantastic question there. Yes. So different cards will have different qualification requirements there. Sometimes when you get cards with extremely high benefits and features, those will require much higher credit scores there, as well as different income amounts directly on those cards. So typically kind of your normal cash back card, airline rewards card will be pretty typical. But if there's lots of additional features being added to cards, and there's a whole bunch out there, then they're going to start adding fees and additional items on those cards there. So really just take note, utilize that Schumer box, make that comparison. That's going to be the key there.
And how does the Consumer Protect Bureau help people with disputes with their credit card companies if an issue doesn't get resolved with the merchant or bank?
Fantastic question here. And we saw that directly labeled in the Schumer box with the website there. So that's kind of your secondary method. If that dispute isn't resolved directly with the credit card company, you do have that option through the Consumer Protection Bureau there. And that's a method and a great resource that you can utilize to, continue to dispute any issue that you have with those credit card companies. So the Credit Act really provided a lot of great protection for us. Back in the day, I think we can all remember people were handing out incentives. You got a sweatshirt, you got a towel, you got a blanket. You just sign up with our credit card today. All you need to do is just sign your name and you're good to go. Now there's truly kind of the full review that has to occur. So really take note, kind of no credit card is equal across the board. You want to take note of what those benefits and features are, and with different benefits and features are going to be different fee structures.
Can you ask your credit card company to lower your interest rate? Is that possible?
No, your interest rate is primarily set directly on your credit score upon applying there. So you don't have the choice to be able to kind of set your interest rate on the credit card. They're going to provide you what their interest rate range is. As we saw in the first example of our Schumer box, that range was 15 to 18%. Basically, the financial institution is going to kind of have a matrix in regards to what your credit score is, and that will be determined, that the credit score that you have will determine the interest rate that you fit into within that card. If you have a great credit score, you're probably going to be within that 15 to 16%. If you're in the average credit score range, you're probably, on that specific Schumer box we looked at, probably 16 to 17. If you kind of have just, Normal credit, you're probably within that 18. That would shift if you're looking at a major bank card, that ranges between kind of that 22 to 25 for good to average credit. And then if it's kind of normal, just beginning credit, you're looking probably upwards of 28%.
And does closing inactive credit cards affect your credit score?
Absolutely. So anytime we're thinking about closing a credit card, we just want to second guess that for a second. Primarily what we want to do is we want to know how long we've had this credit card open for. If it's just been a year, that's not a lot of transaction history, but we'll have to take note. What is the full amount of transaction history that we have on a credit card? Because we don't want to close the one with the longest history. If you have a credit card that you've had for 10 years and you have another one for 1 year, if you close the one for 1 year, you're not going to see a big dent in your credit score. But if you close the one of 10 years, you're going to see a huge dent because that's going to erase that entire time. And then when you apply for any additional credit card or any other type of loan, all I see on your credit report currently is you have a credit card that you've had open for 1 year compared to, oh, I actually see you had a credit card a year ago that was open for 10 years, but you closed that and that dropped your credit score. So really take note, if you're not utilizing that card and it has a long payment transaction history, continue to utilize it just for a small purchase to keep it active so that your card isn't reducing your limit and isn't closing it on you. That's the key, because anytime you're closing something, it's removing that credit history. And that's the whole point about utilizing credit cards and any type of credit, is showing us, because payment transaction history equates to 35% of our credit score.
So when you're requesting the credit reports, you mentioned requesting one every 4 months. Should you lock your credit during that time?
Yes, that can be a great option for you. You actually have two different types of options, which you can protect your credit. You can do a credit freeze, and basically you just need to contact the credit bureau and remove that. And then you can also put on just a notification. So when your credit report is pulled, the financial institution actually has to call the number that you put on your credit report to confirm and verify you to continue the application process. So two great methods to kind of protect your credit so that nobody can gain access to it, can actually pull a credit report. That first one is putting the notification on. That would basically require the banker to call you, even if you're sitting right in front of them. Whatever number is listed on your credit report, we have to verify your identity there to move forward. Or you can put a full credit freeze from anybody receiving your credit report, and then you just have to contact the credit bureaus, lift that freeze, and then we'll receive your report and we move forward. So both of those are two really great items to protect your credit going forward in today's place.
And how much or for how long does debt consolidation affect your credit?
Yeah, so basically it's affecting your credit in a good position because you're opening up a new credit facility. And basically you have a new repayment term on there, something that is much more manageable now compared to the credit card. So you've set that up, say basically you've taken credit card debt now where you were just making that minimum payment. You weren't truly seeing any reduction in that balance. If anything, it was growing because of that high interest rate charge. Now with moving that over to a debt consolidation loan, you have a more normalized interest rate here, something between probably a 10 to 14%, much lower than any of the credit cards that even start in regards to those interest rates there. And then you have a full time period now and a fixed payment to basically pay down the interest rate along with your principal and provide you principal reduction over the term, whether that's 1, 2, 3, or 4 years. So, moving any debt from a credit card over to a debt consolidation loan is actually going to probably help and improve your credit score over time.
And what if a person has a credit card that they never activated? Are there fees being charged, or fees are only activated once the card is active?
Yes, so it's only activated once it's started, and you've activated that card online, but that card regardless would show on your credit report because it's been approved and it's been granted. So in effect, having it is kind of nice. It would show on your credit report as a credit facility, but now here comes the bad part. It's not doing anything for us. It's just basically showing non-activity across the board. So you want to activate it, you want to utilize it, and you want to keep that payment track record and utilization. That equates to over 55% of your credit score just right there. And most importantly, you don't want to keep an active credit card somewhere, because it probably has the telephone number sticker on there to activate it. And if you were to lose your wallet, if you were to misplace it, somebody could easily find that and pick that up and go from there. So don't want to keep that available out there.
In terms of sustaining a high credit card score, besides paying the balance in full and on time, is there anything else?
Yeah, so just that second key piece is then the utilization. So making sure you're producing a statement balance. That's the balance being reported to the credit bureau. You're making your payment in full, or you're making more than the minimum payment, getting yourself back on track, and you're keeping your utilization low. You're keeping it to 30%. Now, sometimes we're unable to do so, but here's one of the tricks that I utilize if I'm basically running my credit card right up to that high balance, and I know my statement is coming up in the next 2 weeks. I'll make a prepayment to my credit card to reduce that outstanding balance, to get it back down within that 30% utilization before the credit card statement is produced. Because if your credit card statement, when it's produced, shows that, basically we're utilizing the credit cards to make all of our purchases. So in effect, we're running all of our purchases up to that credit limit, then paying it off in full. But when that balance is being reported, it's showing a very high utilization. And when we look at that on the banking side, we see that, in effect, you're dependent. You require that credit card. If we were to take it away from you, where is the cash that you have on hand in your budget to make the purchases that you need over the month? You can get in a vicious cycle of, oh, I'm going to make a purchase today, but I'm going to make that payment when I get paid next month. And then you can start falling behind and behind. So you want to make sure if you're making a payment, you have that cash in hand, or it's coming in. And when that balance is produced, you're going to be able to make that payment in full, and you're keeping your utilization down. Those are the two key factors there for making sure that we're building and sustaining good credit scores with using our credit cards.
Got it. And if the card that you have is with the same bank, can you downgrade the card to one with no annual fee without losing the credit history? Or would you have to keep paying the annual fee to not lose the history?
Great question. It will depend on the credit grantor. Sometimes they will allow you just to basically move cards and keep the exact same credit history. You're just moving, from one card to another card. Sometimes the financial institutions won't allow that because of the specific way the card operates. So you would have to basically open up a new card. You would hold on a second. I'm not going to close the current card that I have. I'm just actively not going to use it all the time, as I'm going to use this new card, but I'm not going to close it. I'm going to make sure I put, just a small transaction on a monthly basis to keep it going, so that I'm keeping that payment transaction history going forward. And because you're utilizing it a very small amount, your utilization on that card is very low. So that's kind of a great factor there for cards that you're not using. You're just, making a small purchase to keep it active, keep that long transaction history, and then your utilization is really low on that card, which helps you out as well.
And can a credit card company reduce your limit even though it's paid off and hasn't been used regularly?
Yes, absolutely. So depending on the terms and conditions, credit card companies can reduce your limit. They can change your credit score depending if they pull a credit bureau on your card. Some cards can note that they can make, check your credit score down the road, a year, 2 years, even longer, just to reassess what that credit situation is on the card. So that's something that you just always want to maintain good financial habits going forward. Payments on time, utilize auto payments, keep your utilization low, keep different forms of credit out there, so that you're just continuing to strengthen it over time.
So when you're added to your parents' credit card account for emergencies or whatever reason, if you remove yourself because you don't want to be attached to them anymore, what if it comes up in your credit report still?
Yeah, so being an authorized user on a card can be good and bad. When you're an authorized user, in effect, basically the ownership of that card is treated the same to the owner of the card to who authorizes the card. So if basically you are removing yourself off that card, you can be removing your transaction history on that card. So you really want to take note of that. Maybe you would just want to continue to be an authorized user if you've been on that card for so long. But take note, as an authorized user, you are not a primary card holder, and you want to be in a position where you are a primary card holder. I've actually spoken with numerous people over the years that, just were an authorized user on their parents' card, and their parents never actually used that card, and in effect it became their card, and they used it for years and years as their primary card, but it never truly did as much help as if they had their credit card in their own name as a primary user, because that's going to help you in regards to building that credit score more over time than being an authorized user. It's kind of a nice feature if you can get approval for a credit card directly in your own name. But really the key is to do that to get some credit reporting going. So then down the road, you can get a credit card directly in your own name.
Okay, last two questions.
Perfect.
Okay, what will happen to your credit score if you cancel an approved credit card but never activated it? This person applied for a credit card for a promotion and then lost the card before they could activate it.
Okay, so you can always call them. They can reissue the card. You shouldn't see a huge effect in your credit score. Obviously, it's something that kind of never was activated. It was a facility that went on there and then was removed. So not a major impact over time. Definitely, if you're not utilizing it, never was activated. It's never even provided you any payment transaction history. So it's not doing anything. So if I would just close it down completely to make sure that it just is removed off of your credit report, because that's something that, we just look at in regards to kind of financial management and financial health on your credit report. If you have a credit card that's been approved, but, it's just not doing anything, what was the purpose of you having it? Also having a credit limit attached to it basically says you have the ability to borrow X amount. So the next time that you're looking for a loan, that possibly could affect that, because we need to take note of what the available access to credit that you have.
Are you able to recommend debt consolidation institutions, Ryan?
Yeah, basically a lot of lenders out there, basically your credit unions and your banks have all great options. You truly don't need to go to a credit repair place. Your major banks and credit unions can provide you debt consolidation loans at really great rates out there. Just take note of what those rates are and their offers. But typically, you can really just do this your own. You don't really need to pay anybody to do this, to get access to your credit report. You can do that completely fee-free of charge. And basically, if you are holding debt on your credit card, you want to get that off into an easy personal loan or a line of credit, or if it's on a short-term basis, as I noted, 6 months to a year, then that balance transfer offer can be a good idea as well. But the key is just stop paying high rates of interest on your debt on those credit cards, thinking, hey, I'm going to be able to pay that off in the next little while, but then that just never occurs.
And Ryan, this is one last question. Hopefully it's a quick one. For a married couple, is it important to both partners have good credit score?
Yes, absolutely. And then even though if you're having joint credit cards, you should both have individual credit cards as well. So really important.
Great. All right, let's move on and wrap up this session. Thank you so much, Ryan. So much great information to digest, and wonderful, wonderful session. Carrie, would you like to share all the USC financial wellness resources with us?
Good afternoon. Great presentation, Ryan. Lots of great information in there. I'm Carrie Martelkeen. I'm the lead retirement administrator for the university, and I just want to talk about all of the financial wellness resources that we have. We have one-on-one financial consultations that are free of cost with your vendor, either TIAA, Fidelity, or Vanguard. We also have retirement planning specialists who can meet with you to go over your retirement benefits at USC and how they can be leveraged for all of the big things in our life as we move through the stages of our lives, buying homes, having children, etc. Thank you so much. I'm going to make it quick because I know we're short on time.
Thank you, Carrie, and I encourage all of you to take advantage of these wonderful resources. And on the next slide, you'll see the last two sessions remaining in our series. On April 8th, we have John Cinder, who will be sharing investments for your retirement. And then we'll wrap up the session on May 13th with a session on mental health and money and financial health. So make sure you sign up and let your colleagues know as well. And then finally, on our last slide, we just want to encourage you all to complete the evaluation form. Let us know what you thought, as well as future topics for our future sessions. And for attending today, you'll earn 50 points towards your Vitality Health Incentive Program. There's nothing you need to do. We'll submit your name and your points will be automatically added to your account. And with that, we will do our raffle. So if you can stop sharing the slides, Ryan, and our intern Sam will spin the wheel for everyone who entered into the raffle, and let's see who our lucky winner is for today. And we'll be in touch with you to coordinate delivery of your raffle prize. And yes, we'll be sending out the slides and the recording as well. Amy M, thank you so much, Amy. Congratulations. And we'll see you all next month. Thank you for attending, everyone. Ryan, if you can stay on, that would be great. And Carrie. Oh, we lost Carrie.